Hello students, welcome back. Today we will study about respiration. Now, what is respiration? Respiration is the process in which the food is oxidized to give us energy in the form of an ATP, and it releases carbon dioxide and water. Okay, now what do you mean by breathing? The breathing means inhaling and exhaling of gases, inhaling and exhaling of air. Okay, we inhale air which is rich in oxygen and we exhale air which is rich in carbon dioxide. Okay, so respiration means broadly means the exchange of gases, but animals and plants, we all know that they have a different means of exchange of gases. So at cellular level, respiration means when the cell is respiring, it means that burning the food for the regenerating the energy needed for other life process. The energy which we get, the energy which we get in the form of an ATP, this energy, this ATP is utilized for the other life processes. Now, cellular respiration, this may take place in both in the presence or in the absence of oxygen. Now, what do you mean by respiratory in humans? Now, respiratory system involves both breathing as well as cellular respiration. Respiratory, human respiratory system, it involves both breathing as well as cellular respiration. As we know, we have discussed in the last class that we humans are we are a complex organism as we have a complex digestive system. Similarly, we also have a complex respiratory system. Now, this well-defined respiratory system helps breathing and exchange of gases. It involves the inhalation of oxygen and exhalation of carbon dioxide. We inhale air which is rich in oxygen and we exhale air which is rich in carbon dioxide. Now, this gaseous exchange takes place in the lungs. Where? In the lungs. This gaseous exchange, where does it take place? In the lungs. In the lungs, alveolar capillaries, and oxygen is supplied to all the cells of the body. I have told you that the deoxygenated blood is taken to the lungs alveolar capillary, and then it is oxygenation, then it is purified, and then oxygenated blood is transported to all the cells of the body. Now, cellular respiration, we know it takes place in each and every cell of a living organism. It takes place in each and every cell of a living organism. As I told you that respiration can take place in both in the presence of oxygen as well as in the absence of oxygen. So when it takes place in the presence of oxygen, it is known as aerobic respiration. It is known as aerobic respiration, and it produces 38 ATP. It produces 38 ATP. That means in aerobic respiration, it gives us more energy. It gives us more energy. Now, what are the steps which are followed in cellular respiration? The first step is that it breaks down glucose. Now, we know that what is the formula for glucose? C6H12O6. So, it is a 6 carbon compound. This 6 carbon compound is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate. Pyruvate is a 3 carbon compound. Pyruvate is a 3 carbon compound. And where does the aerobic respiration takes place? It takes place in the cytoplasm. Now, second step is pyruvate is then broken down. This pyruvate, this 3 carbon compound is broken down to CO2 and water, and it takes place in the mitochondria. This second takes place. Where does it takes place? It takes place in the mitochondria, where energy is produced in ATP form. We know that mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell, and it gives us energy in the form of an ATP. So the breakdown of pyruvate to CO2 and water, it takes place in the mitochondria. Clear? Where large amount of ATP is produced, large molecule of ATP is produced, 38 molecules. Now, in anaerobic respiration is the process in which takes place in the absence of oxygen. It takes place in the absence of oxygen, and it gives us less energy. It gives us less energy. That means it gives only 2 molecules of ATPs. It is the oxidation of nutrients without using up the molecular oxygen. They don't use molecular oxygen. That means it takes place in the absence of oxygen. Now, what is the first step of anaerobic respiration? Glycolysis in cytoplasm, where 2 molecules of pyruvate is produced. That means the second step, the breakdown of pyruvic acid is in ethanol and water and energy. Okay, so first step is what? That it breaks down into 6 more carbon compound is first broken down into 2 pyruvate produced, which is the process of glycolysis. What is glycolysis? The breakdown of glucose. The breakdown of glucose into 2 pyruvate molecules. 2 molecules of pyruvate. Where does it take place? It takes place in the cytoplasm. And the second step, this pyruvic acid is broken down into ethanol, water and energy in case of yeast. And in case of us, it breaks down in lactic acid. This lactic acid, if you remember, when we do strenuous exercise, when we are in an anaerobic environment, what happens? The lactic acid are produced because we are respiring at that moment in anaerobically, and that in that case this pyruvate molecule is converted into lactic acid, and this lactic acid get accumulated in our muscles. Okay, this lactic acid get accumulated in our muscles, which results in fatigue, and it gives us less energy. It gives us less energy. It gives only 2 molecules of ATP. This is the pathway. These are the 3 pathway where the glucose takes place. That first, glucose 6 carbon molecule. This glycolysis, this process is known as glycolysis. This glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm. This is very important for Cbse. This question comes every year, so by heart you all have to learn this equation. So glucose is a 6 carbon molecule in cytoplasm. It produces 3 carbon molecule pyruvate and energy. Now this pyruvate can enter in any of these 3 phases. The first, if it enters in yeast, and this process is known as anaerobic respiration. Why? Because it takes place in the absence of oxygen. It results in ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy, 2 molecules of ATP. When it takes place again when it respires anaerobically in muscle cell, it produces lactic acid and energy. And when it respires aerobically, that means when it takes place in the presence of oxygen in mitochondria, then it gives us carbon dioxide, water and energy. Now this is the physiology of respiration. We know that what are the organs which are involved in respiration? Nose, nostrils, okay, pharynx, larynx, trachea, lungs, okay. Alveoli, in lungs you have an alveoli. Now breathing in humans is facilitated by the action of an intercostal muscles. See, you can see this, these are the intercostal muscles, and this is a diaphragm. It is a diaphragm, a muscular flat like structure which separates the thoracic and abdomen cavity. This red color is a diaphragm. It is a muscular sheet which makes the floor of the chest cavity, and it separates the thoracic and abdomen. It is originally a dome shaped. When you inhale the oxygen, when you inhale air, what will happen? It will contract during inhalation. It will contract, see, and it becomes flattened, and as a result your rib cage and intercostal muscle comes outward and upward. You please inhale, you will feel the experience. Please inhale. When you are inspiring, you see your rib cage and intercostal muscle, it comes outward and upward, and again, and the chest cavity increases, so the volume of air is more. In the chest cavity is more. And when you exhale, again this diaphragm come back to its original position. As a result, it pushes the air, and the rib cage and the intercostal muscles gets downward and inward. As a result, it releases air. Okay. Now, so we will quickly read about it, that when the intercostal muscles attached to the ribs and the diaphragm, when the dome-shaped diaphragm contracts and becomes flattened, the rib cage is expanded due to the action of intercostal muscles, and the volume of lungs increases. Pressure there drops down and from the air and outside gushes into the in, and this is called inhalation. Now to exhale, the diaphragm relaxes, become dome shaped again. Chest cavity again it contracts due to the action of intercostal muscle, and the volume of inside the lung decreases. Pressure increases and the air is forced out of the lung. So inhaled air increases the concentration of oxygen in the alveoli. It increases the concentration of oxygen in the alveoli. So oxygen simply diffuses. I have told you how it diffuses. It diffuses into the air capillaries by the process of diffusion. Now the blood coming from cells are more concentration of carbon dioxide than outside air. Thus carbon dioxide simply diffuses out. It diffuses out of the blood vessels into the alveoli. This breathing takes place due to the combined action of intercostal muscles, diaphragm, and while the exchange of gases takes place due to simple diffusion. So this is very important. By which process they exchange the gases? They exchange the gases by the process of a diffusion. Inhalation and exhalation. The process of taking air rich in oxygen is called inhalation, which I have told you earlier. Similarly, the process of giving out air rich in carbon dioxide is called exhalation. One breath comprises one inhalation and one exhalation. Means complete inhalation and exhalation comprises of it makes up one breath. So a person breathes several times in a day. So the number of times a person breathes in 1 minute is termed as his or her breathing rate. In 1 minute, how many times you are breathing, that is your breathing rate. Now, the respiration in lower animals. There are lower animals like they also have a respiratory system like lungs, alveoli, and etc. So, respiration in them takes place by the simple exchange mechanism. They also diffuse by the simple exchange mechanism, like earthworm. They take gases through their skin. They exchange their gases through their moist skin. Fishes also, they also have gills for gaseous exchange. Insects have a tracheal system, which is a network of tubes. It has a network of tubes and through which air circulates and gaseous exchange takes place. Frog breathes through their moist skin when it is in water, and when it is in land, it breathes through lungs. Now, respiration in muscles. I have told you that in muscles, when does it respire? It respires anaerobic. When we are doing strenuous exercise, and the muscles, that time our cells are respire anaerobically. When there is not enough oxygen, that time the glucose gets broken down into lactic, carbon dioxide, and lactic acid, and this lactic acid get accumulated in our muscles and results in fatigue. Now, this type of anaerobic respiration is also known as lactic acid fermentation. This type of anaerobic respiration is also known as lactic acid fermentation. Now, this is ATP. ATP is what? ATP is the energy currency of the cell. It gives us energy in the form of an ATP. What is the full form of ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. Now, this molecule is created as a result like photosynthesis and respiration. We have read this. Now, there are three phosphate bonds, ATP. We are talking about TP. That means triphosphate 1, 2 and 3. Okay. This is adenine, and this is adenine structure, and this is a ribose sugar. Such released energy is then used for metabolic reaction. This energy we used for the metabolic reaction and for the other life processes. Now, respiration in plants. Unlike animals and humans, plants also do not have any specialized structure for gaseous exchange. They have stomata. We know they have stomata, which are present in leaves, and lenticel. Now, what is lenticel? Lenticel is an old opening in a woody bark stem. What is lenticel? Lenticel is an old opening in a woody bark stem, which are involved in exchange of gases, where the woodpecker sits. So, compared to animal, plant root stems and leaves respire at a very low rate. Okay. Now, let me tell you our trachea. A trachea is a C-shaped cartilaginous ring. Why it has a C-shaped cartilaginous ring? So that if the air enters in our trachea, to prevent it from collapsing, imagine if you have a the balloon. If in the balloon, when you are pushing the air, when you are blowing the air in the balloon, it inflates. The moment you release the air, it will collapse. So for to prevent it, it is a C shaped. That means the other end it is open, so that it can prevent it from collapsing. Okay, and on the top of the trachea there is also a muscular like structure, flap like structure called called epiglottis, which prevents the entry of food into the trachea. This prevents the entry of food into the trachea. Epiglottis is a muscular flap-like structure present at the top of the trachea to prevent the entry of food into the trachea. By mistake, if the food enters into the trachea, I told you that it is lined with a ciliated epithelium. It pushes the food again back to the trachea, mouth. Clear? So this is what all about the respiration. I hope it is clear. Please watch this video. If you have any doubt, please ask me. Do not hesitate. Thank you. Take care.